When I'm making videos, I normally create virtual machines to demonstrate whatever the topic is at hand. And then I just wipe out those VMs once I'm done. What I'm looking at today is creating a repository of AlmaLinux, which is creating a mirror copy of all the files needed to do an installation so that I don't have to keep downloading the files from the internet every time I want to create a VM. Usually when I start a new project, I create a new VM. So let's do it here. Let's call it mirror. Let's give it a disk size. The mirror for AlmaLinux is around 15 gigs. I'm gonna do a 40 gig disk. You don't need much memory. I'm gonna give it 4 gigs. Interface. And it opens up this little virtual window here you have to keep your eye on. Now this is using the Pixie boot, which is a way to boot over the network, download the installation files, and then tell the install to get the drives from a local repository. So I want to install AlmaLinux here. I want to do the kickstart, which is the automated install. So I'm going to hit my tab key here. And at the end of this, I need to put in the host name. Then hit enter. And what that's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to install a basic AlmaLinux system. And then I'll be able to log into it and create whatever other programs, directories, folders, applications that I need. I'll be creating a video on this later showing how to set up the Pixie boot. All right, that is the end of the installation. Now all I have to do now is press enter. Pressing enter, it's going to stop. It's going to restart the guest. The restart is there. And there it has the host name that I typed into the command line. I'll go ahead and log in. And then I'm ready to install. I'm going to get the IP of this box so that I can SSH to it. It is at 40.133. And I'm going to root. Now I'm going to need a web server. I'm going to use Nginx, and I'm going to need Rsync to actually copy the files. So I have to do a dnf install Nginx and Rsync. So I'm installing from my local repository here. I called it beasley.dom. And I'm installing Nginx, which is the web server, and I'm going to install Rsync, which is what lets you copy the files down. So go ahead and install those. And I will fast forward through this. All right, those installed okay. I want to edit the Nginx config file. So take your favorite text editor, and we want X. This is the basic configuration file that comes with it. Under the server, we're going to comment out the line that shows where all the HTML files are. We're going to add our own. We're going to create a folder called mount/mirror. And down under the root location, we want to turn on the auto index. That's going to let you connect to the web server and just get a list of files there. That's normally off by default. All right, we want to enable the web server and start it if it hadn't started already. It's enabled. Now, Nginx. And it starts, and you don't get an error message at all, which is fine. We should have created the directory first, but I'm going to go ahead and create it now. I'm going to restart Nginx since the directory wasn't there. All right, so when we open our web browser, and what IP is this? Forgot already, 40.133. Can't connect, that's because the firewall is on. So if I do a firewall, see, these services are enabled, but I'm not allowing port 80, which is the web server. So I have to allow port 80 connections. The command is that adds it. If I want to make it permanent, type that. I'm going to go back to list. Now you see that I have HTTP there. I want to try again. It says it can't connect to it. That's because it's got an S there. I don't want an S. There you go. Now I get the index slash. Now, in that config file, the nginx.conf, when I typed in the auto index on, that enables this feature, so you can see the list of files that are there. Okay, so we're going to keep all of our files inside a folder called Mount Mirror. what I like to do, I like to go ahead and create the file structure. .5, let me do a -p. -p says create the folders if they're not already there. So I want AlmaLinux 8.5 base OS x86_64. I forgot the rest of it. I'm going to have to check that. OS is the last part. x64/OS. And we're also going to sync the Appstream. All right, so we need to find out where we can get these files from. And we'll go to mirrors.almalinux.org. And we get a list of mirrors here. We want to find a mirror that supports. Got to turn my camera off there. Hold on. We want to find a mirror that supports the rsync function, because rsync is how we're going to get the files from the remote location back to us. So as long as it supports rsync, that is what we're going to use. So I'm going to find something in America. All right, all these support rsync. All right, let's try the one at mirror.steadfastnet.com. I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to use it later. And I'm going to switch back over here. All right, let's clear it. And I need to borrow command over here. Let me go to opt. All right, this is what I want to borrow. This command. All right, the rsync command has the following format. So we're going to run rsync. We're telling it to do everything, including the subdirectories. We want to compress with the Z. The V is for verbosity. I've got that on just so I can show you what it's doing. You don't have to use the V. And I'm doing the N, which is a dry run, which means it'll connect and look and see what it needs to sync, and it'll give you a report on how much it needs to transfer, but it won't actually transfer it. So if I were actually doing an rsync, I would leave off the V and the N. Okay, the option for -- delete tells Rsync that if a file exists on your local machine and you're rsyncing from a remote machine and the file does not exist there, it's going to delete your local copy. So if they release a kernel update up on the AlmaLinux repo, but they remove the older version from the repo, we want it to remove the older version from our local repo also. So that's what the -- delete does. I've got a -- exclude here. I'm telling it I don't want any folder that has ISO-Linux in it. That / means my line is getting too long for the end of the screen. So I'm going to continue it on the next one, and that's what that / does. And when we go and we look at, doesn't matter which one I pick here because the format is all the same. You'll notice that they have the AlmaLinux and the root. Under AlmaLinux, they have the version number. And then they have all these repos. To do the install, we only need the base OS and the Appstream. So you saw before I created the base x86-64. I don't need the debug or the AA-arch. I don't need those, and I don't need the source. I just want the... So when you go under x84, I want the kickstart and the OS folder. The kickstart has this ISO-Linux folder. And there's where you got some stuff there that I don't need. But when you go down to this OS folder, same thing. The OS folder has to have this repo data folder underneath it. So I'm going to clone this from the mirror site, and it's going to give me all of this. And the main stuff that I'm looking for is in this packages folder, which is where all the packages are installed. So what I have to do, remember I copied that host name into this folder. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it in. Okay, I didn't put the version in there. So it's AlmaLinux 8.5/base OS. AlmaLinux 8.5/base. Make that longer. All right, it gives me a long list of stuff and packages down at the bottom. It gives me a total size here. That total size is 3.4 gigs, it says. Now, if I wanted to, well, it'll take 3.4 gigs on my drive. So what I want to do is I want to time that, see how long it takes. Then I take off the N because I wanted to actually do the transfer. And I'm going to take off the V because I don't need all the information. So I'm going to time that and let it run through. That download finally finished. Apparently this is a slow site because it took 45 minutes. That's probably why it took so long. But anyway, we're going to go back to mount mirror. And I want to see how much space it's taking up. All right, it's taking up 3.3 gigs, just like the command told us when we did the dry run. So if we go look in AlmaLinux, go look in 8.5. All right, here are all the folders that are there. And there's the packages folder with all the packages that we need. And while I'm here, I'll do a LSLA. There's a file here called treeinfo. This treeinfo file is a hidden file. And I want to show you what's in there. Part of this install, it has a reference pointing back to the Appstream. So what happens is when you point your install at this repository, and it goes in and it starts the install, it's going to look for the Appstream repository, but it's going to start in your current directory and it's going to go back up 3 levels and look for the Appstream folder. So let me copy this. So we are in the base OS x8664 OS folder. That install by default is going to look in treeinfo and it's going to try to go. It's going to try to go back up 3 levels. And from there, it's going to look for your Appstream folder. And this is where most people have problems because they try to just mirror the base OS, but they don't mirror the Appstream. So when they get to the install, they get an error that says it can't find your mirror or something similar to that. So you have to sync the base OS and you have to sync the Appstream also. And you have to, well, you don't have to, but it's much easier to do it that way because that .treeinfo file, if you go in and modify it and make it point to your custom Appstream or an Appstream out on the internet, the next time you do an rsync, that .treeinfo is going to get updated again. So it's going to point back this way. So I'm going to go offline and I'm going to sync the Appstream and I'm going to come back and I'm going to sync it a little faster because I'm going to do it locally. All right, I did that local sync for the Appstream and it took 6 minutes. That's much better than the 45. But the results are the same. And the actual size of the Appstream is 11 gigs. So you got 11 gigs for the Appstream. You got 3.3 gigs for the base OS. So you're looking at about 15 gigs total. Now there's also another file that you need to grab. have to go back to it. Let me go back, pick any one of them. In the root of the AlmaLinux directory, there is a file that holds the RPM-GPG key. You want to sync that also. So back over here to our sync command. We don't want to get it locally. We want to get it from the remote. All right, we want to sync it to the AlmaLinux folder. In the AlmaLinux folder, that file is called the RPM-GPG key. So we're going to sync that RPM-GPG key file to our local AlmaLinux directory. All right, and there we go. And what is this IP again? .133. So when we go to our local machine, we've got the AlmaLinux folder. We've got 8.5. We've got Appstream. We've got the packages. Oh, I don't have any packages. SELINUX is preventing Nginx from serving the files from the mounted directory that I created because it does that by default. It's security. It's a security feature. We need to tell SELINUX that it can allow files to be served from that folder. And I've got some notes here on how to do that. Let's clear that. We have to tell Nginx that the mount mirror is okay to serve HTTPD content. Then we have to since we've already got stuff in there, we have to put those labels back on. That puts it on the folder so that anything new added to the folder will get that same label. But then we have to add it to everything that's already in there. So we have to do the -RB. All right, and this time we're going to watch our audit log file here. What are you in there? Now you could just as easily turn off SELINUX and everything would work, but then you would lose some of the security features of SELINUX. So we're going to go through our install again. We have to click one of these and come out. Tell it where we want to install. We want to install there. We want to hit done. And we want to see if it will grab those packages. And I'm watching the log over here to see if anything's coming up. Now it says the installation source, and it tells you it's going to pull it from that mirror that we created. We can go in and we can select our software. We want to do a server install. We want the network services. Let's put in a basic web server, and we're done. We go back and we start the installation. The installation is finished. We're going to reboot the system. And of course, it boots back to the CD-ROM because we still have it mounted, so we have to stop it. Go back into the config, and we have to disconnect that CD-ROM. And it'll boot up normally. So there's an install that you've done from your local mirror there. And you have one last thing that you need to do. Let me see, get the IP of this test 33 machine. This one is at 40. Can't even see that. This one's at 40.130. We're gonna open up a shell and go over there. All right, you've installed from the local mirror, but the local mirror puts in the repositories for the external sites. You go to etc yum.repos.d, and these are all the repos that the installation puts in by default. So if you look at AlmaLinux.repo, for example, you see that it's got all the defaults in here. So what you can do is you can remove these repo files. Well, I like to do a DNF clean first. Yes, I want to delete them. And you can create your own custom repo file. I'm missing the Appstream. I'm missing the base OS. So I want to, how many is that? That's one. I'll take 9 lines and copy them and paste them there. I'm going to change this to base OS. Change it here. All right, so I've got the base OS, got the Appstream, and I put the extra packages there, but I disable it. The enabled equals 0 means that it's disabled. And anytime you upgrade the system, you'll need to replace this repo file. So save a copy of it somewhere. So there's my custom repo file, and I did do a DNF make cache. It goes in and it copies the files. It gives me the updated metadata. And now I can do installs from that. And you want to update your mirror site, and I do mine once a week. I do it on late Friday night, because usually if I'm going to build a VM or something, I'm going to do it on the weekend, like a Saturday or Sunday. So you have to remember those commands that we used for the rsync. And I'm going to stretch them out all the way here. These are the commands that we used for that rsync. You want to take those commands and put them into a cron job, and you run them once a week. And remember, if the lines here are too long, you can put a backslash there and break them so that they're more even and they're easier to read. I'll put a backslash there. It's all treated as one line. And I usually put a space there just so it's easier to read. So you would do this once a week and you would be updated. And that's all it takes to do a simple mirror using Rsync. You're going to need about 15 gigs to 20 gigs just for the repo data. I did a 40 gig drive just to be safe. Remember to add the -- delete command to your rsync command. That way, if the mirror site that you're syncing from deletes some files, you will also delete them locally. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like in that order. Thank you.